In the last episode, we saw that there was disagreement or contradiction in the accounts of the betrayal of Jesus by Judas Iscariot. This contradiction continues in the account of the Gospels about the death of Judas Iscariot. According to Matthew, the Gospel of Matthew, if you go to Matthew 27, verses 3 to 10, it says that after he had betrayed Jesus with a kiss that never was actually, he became remorseful and he went back to the chief priest and returned the money he had taken. The 30 pieces of silver, he said, "Take the money, I don't want it anymore." He dropped the money for them on the floor when they refused to accept it, and then he went and hanged himself. Now the chief priest, not wanting to keep the bribe money in the temple treasury because apparently it was against the Jewish law, says, "We are going to use this money," and they use that money to buy what is called a potter's field, and this was for the burial of foreigners. And this act, Matthew says, was in fulfillment of the prophecy in Jeremiah that, quote, "They took the 30 pieces of silver, the price set on him by the people of Israel, and they used them to buy the potter's field as the Lord commanded me," end of quote. Now the prophecy referenced in that passage in Matthew was Jeremiah 32, verse 6 to verse 13. Jeremiah 32, now please go and read it for yourself, because that passage has nothing whatsoever to do with Judas Iscariot or with Jesus. In fact, it was not even a prophecy. It was just a story of an event that had passed, an event that apparently happened already. In that story, Jeremiah had bought a plot of land belonging to his cousin for 17 shekels of silver. Now that cousin of his had mortgaged the land to somebody else for a loan. Now Jeremiah went and bought it back, so he paid the price of the land and recovered it from the person that bought it and that gave the loan to the cousin. By so doing, Jeremiah, who was the closest relative to that cousin of his, was able to keep the land in the family as required by Jewish custom. There was no connection whatsoever with Judas, and this is the penchant of Matthew to try and claim falsely, wrongly, that something about Jesus' life is a fulfillment of prophecy. There was no fulfillment of any prophecy throughout the Gospels. And as we go along in our study, you find all those claims about prophecies fulfilled were false. So this case, false. There was no connection whatsoever with Judas. Okay, that was the story or the account of the death of Judas Iscariot according to the Gospel of Matthew. But Acts of the Apostles give a different account. Now, Peter, one of the disciples of Jesus, who you would expect was there when all these things were happening, who saw firsthand. Yeah? So Peter told his fellow disciples that Judas, after the betrayal, used his money, the 30 pieces of silver, to buy land. Having bought this land, Judas fell headlong on that land, burst his gut, and spilled his intestines. And because of this, this field was called, or the land was called, Akaldema, which means field of blood. It wasn't the potter's field. It wasn't the priest that bought the land. It was Judas himself that bought it. And Judas didn't hang himself, but he fell headlong in the land that he bought. And Peter says this was in fulfillment of the prophecy in Psalms 69 and 109. Psalm 69 and 109, which says, "May his place be deserted, let there be no one to dwell in it, and may another take his place of leadership." So this was when they were about to select a replacement for Judas. And this was the account of Peter about how Judas ended up and why somebody will take his place. However, Psalm 69 and 109 have nothing to do with Judas. Has nothing to do with Jesus. Instead, they were lamentations and prayers of the psalmist, who felt so worried, so sad, so overwhelmed, and so bitter that he was surrounded by enemies and troubles. And he prayed, he called for vengeance of the God of Israel on his enemies. And the vengeance he was asking for included that the habitations of the enemies be desolate, that their lives be cut short, and that they forfeit their positions of leadership. So another copy and paste. Nothing whatsoever to do with Judas or with Jesus. Cut and paste. Well, even more intriguing is the suggestion by Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians 15, 3-5, that Judas did not in fact die at the time they claimed he was spilling his guts by falling down on the land he bought or hanging himself. That he was very much alive at the time of the resurrection of Jesus. 1 Corinthians 15, 3-5 says, now this is Paul speaking, "For what I received I passed on to you as of first importance, that Christ died for our sins according to the Scriptures, that he was buried, that he was raised on the third day according to the Scriptures, and that he appeared to Cephas, i.e. to Peter, and then to the 12, i.e. the 12 disciples." So Jesus resurrected, having been crucified, and appeared to the 12 disciples, according to Paul. So which means, at the time of the resurrection and ascension, Paul is saying that Judas Iscariot was there. Now, and remember that there was no replacement of Judas by Matthias until after the ascension. Thank you for watching. If you do like the video, you know what to do. Subscribe to the channel, give us a thumbs up, and if you have any comments, please make it. Thank you very much. Have a good time. Bye-bye.